Amy, what is the gist here that we're
General
going to pick up
consensus
from?
here, I do this thing, you guys. I take all these notes that all that have been in my class have learned never take notes, but we try to synthesize all this. Um, I think practice building is always going to be there, right? And so what we'd like to probably delve into more is the coaching aspect of things. And so I got very intrigued around bias in coaching. That's come up a couple of times. Um, always educating, right? Amy's point about always educating coaching, because I think that ties into practice building as well. Um, and then Gregory, your comment about not trusting yourself, I found intriguing, which also I think might tie into practice building as well. And can I start out by asking you to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I'll describe what for me that looks like or feels like. I think it's working with a client. I feel as if I'm listening, I'm focused, but my brain is jumping ahead to think about, okay, what's the great question and like what's gonna get us there and like kind of where am I and like the depending on what model, like what step we're at and I start thinking about the structure and how to ask a good question so that it's makes sense, it's meaningful, they have an aha moment,
Yeah.
and and then I feel like I'm losing them or something's not going right versus when I'm just there and it's like okay, it's flowing. So
Right. Okay. So that also tied into too. A couple you brought up feeling like you're not doing enough. So that is associated.
I
Correct me if
think that's a piece of it, and I think sometimes just like I said, that tension of before a call, how much time have I spent?
yeah,
Yeah,
I heard. I
getting
got
ready.
that part too. All right. Ilias, what are you grabbing here?
Well, I'm curious from everyone here listening to Gregory, how much do we sympathize with his thoughts and ideas? Jennifer is like big, 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 big. Yeah, so I'm curious, like without necessarily using the coach approach here for us, what is the curiosity that we have around this particular topic?
One of the things that comes to mind for me is our ICF chapter got to hear Michael Bungay Stanier last week, and it was really good. And it just reminded me of staying curious a few seconds more, basically. So just trying to listen more, because I'll speak for myself. That's sometimes I need to check myself so I'm not, number one, assuming anything, or number two, not solutioning.
Hmm.
So just
My,
trying to keep that awareness in the front.
Yeah. So, but then I have a question here. Like, so the client came to us, and we are not solutioning, we are not providing, we are not giving them, what they are going to do. So, what are they paying us for?
Well, I'll just say for me, I've found that I know we talk about this all the time, but like giving them space, because I had something the other day where I was curious and I asked some questions, and one of them landed to a huge breakthrough. But I was asking questions to understand, and once she kind of connected those questions, it came. So, I mean, that's perfect. Because in
Hmm.
my prior life before coaching, I would have wanted to provide solutions because I wanted to help them. But I'm finding that they know the answer, not me.
Yeah, there is a cartoon from the New Yorker that I oftentimes use this in coach training. And in the cartoon, is the New Yorker cartoons, right? That is just one little picture. We usually with like some sort of a caption. And in the cartoon is this teenage boy. He is in his bedroom and he is lifting weights. And it looks very clear that he is kind of skinny and he's trying to, gain some muscle. So he's there lifting weights. And then the mother opens the door, looks at the kid and says, "Let me help you." Right? So that is exactly what happens sometimes in when we go into this idea of let me solve the problem. Right? What is the learning that you see here with this analogy of this New Yorker cartoon? Anybody? Yes, Lakeisha.
The mother can't build muscle for the son, right? Like she can't lift the weights for him and it have the desired impact. And I wanted to share one point too to Gregory's question. I didn't hear it all because I signed in a little bit late, but I had a coaching session yesterday and I haven't had a coaching session in probably a month with anyone. So I was a little rusty. I didn't take time to center myself before the session. And I find that when I do that, when I create even 15 minutes of space or 10 minutes of space for me to remind myself, you're not solutioning, you don't need to add more value than creating space. The client is perfect. They're wise. When I take the time to do that, the coaching sessions are so much more different. When I don't do that pre-centering work, I fall into that bad habit. So that coach approach for me is making sure that I'm in the coaching mindset before we get started.
Being in the coaching mindset. Interesting. Other thoughts about the cartoon, about the coaching mindset?
I would
Well,
just
when I talk
agree.
about bias. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
When I was talking about bias, I think it can come in here, in a lot of different ways. What I was really talking about when I mentioned bias was when you are working internally. Like in my case, I was an HR director, and as much as I might wanted to have met people where they were, I had an imperative that was put to me that I needed to help people move closer to the mission of the company or whatever it was. But also, I have right now someone I'm coaching who I worked with his parents 20 years ago. And this young man has graduated from college, and the parents, I know that the parents are like, this kid needs help. He needs to figure out how to find a job. And, that's really why they came to me. But I talked with them ahead of time and their son and said, that's not what I do. I can certainly talk with him about job searches and, all of that expertise that I have from being in HR for so long. But then I would, come to the situation with a coach approach, that I would coach the whole person. And I've been doing that. And it's been really beautiful with this young man. And I'm still, though, worried about the parents not being happy if he doesn't produce a long list of jobs he's applied for and gotten a certain number of interviews and callbacks. Like that's what they want. And what he and I are working on is, how he is his own presence and what he brings when he's looking for whatever his next venture might be. And so I feel confident. I know it's going well with him, but then I also, just as we're talking, I'm thinking, so I wanted to get away from the parents' bias. But now am I letting my own bias come in? Because I'm like, see, that he doesn't need to just look for a job. He needs to realize how great he is. And so I'm still bringing some bias to the situation by feeling like I have a solution, and it is that he needs to realize how great he is. That's still a bias.
Yeah, the pressure between letting the client do the work and the expectation. We need to get to a certain place, right? So where do we stand in the middle there? But Amy, you had something to add here.
At this point, I feel like I should just keep saying yes, I agree with what everyone else is saying. Because I agree. Back to Lakeisha's comment, for me, it can even be as simple as 1 minute. And I find that if I can take a couple deep breaths and if I can ground myself before I'm going into a coaching conversation, it changes even things like I had a parent in a coaching session move into me wanting to coach her child who's a hot mess in college. And And maybe originally I would have said, well, sure, let's dive. And I think because I had presence of mind, I could say, do they want to be coached? And it changed the conversation, and it changed. So I think sometimes if you can just take a few breaths and center yourself, it can help you think very differently with how you want to move forward. So Lakeisha, I high five you. I completely agree.
Yeah. So question for everybody. Oh, Jennifer, you were going to add something.
Well, just I that pressure to deliver, and internally, I was meeting with a CEO last week about one of his managers that I coach, and he launches into of our meeting by telling me how he hasn't seen any difference in her, and I was like, but I just kept breathing. And honestly, I said, so okay, that's fascinating. Tell me more. What are you observing? Thank God, I don't do that all the time. And so he was just like, what? And then he would say, thank gosh, in the conversation, he was like, well, no, she's doing this better. And, but it was just funny how he worked himself around to now they weren't in the areas necessarily that he was focused on. And so I walked out of there at least feeling a little bit better that maybe it wasn't going in the direction he wanted, but he was in fact seeing growth and was able to finally, acknowledge that. Where I really struggle inside my coaching, I'll go back to what I think it was Gregory said, is finding that beautiful question, is what I want to be able to find that really moves us into evoking awareness. And I just feel at this point, every once in a while I hit on it, but mostly my questions are pretty pedestrian. And I think it maybe is just a muscle I have to keep working.
Thank you for that. Let's not forget that point of the question. Hind.
Yeah, I think to Gregory's point, and Jennifer just kind of reinforced the same phenomenon, I guess. It feels to me that I wouldn't sit there and evaluate myself. As a coach, that's not what we're here to do. We're not here to impress or, ask the $1 million question or win the prize of the most intriguing and exciting session. No. I would focus on why the client has chosen to be and spend this 45 minutes or hour with you. What are you here to facilitate for the client? So I would focus on the client, not on me. And just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be the best invention after slice. It could be just a very simple question that would evoke awareness, would actually create for them whatever that needs to be created for the transformation to happen. So I would focus on what's happening to the client rather than what it's not a training exercise for you as a coach or a grading platform. So that's my 2 cents.
I'm going to piggyback right on that, Hind, because I think you hit the nail on the head here. It's not about us, you guys. It's not about us at all. And I know it's hard when you're starting because you're evaluating yourself all the time, right? You know how you know you're not delivering? They stop coming. That's how you know. And up till then, we are there to facilitate a process, right? And asking that $1 million question, Gregory, and the rest of you talked about that. That is always a complete anomaly. You may think you're asking the most benign, simple question in the world, and it's like you're just tossing them out, and all of a sudden one becomes a life changer. We can't forecast that. We can't. And give me a second here. This grounding and being in the coaching mindset and doing it before the session, just, and I think Elise does the same. I go back to back. I can sometimes go up to 4 hours right back to back. Boom, done, next. Why? Because I'm always in the coaching mindset. Always. And that's what I'll encourage all of you to do, because that's where the value comes from, is that you are in that mindset all the time. It's not a switch. It's a way of being. And that's where you're always seeking for transformation versus solution. When you're 100% in that mindset.
So group, what is this coaching mindset that we are talking about here? Yes, Lakeisha.
So kind of tying this with what Amy said, to me, it is not solutioning, it is being curious, it is creating the space for the client. To me, those are all elements of the coaching mindset. What I was thinking about, what Amy was saying is I'm still doing much more consulting than I do coaching, which is very, ROI driven, right? But you answered it really. It is really, why are you hired as a consultant? You are hired to transform something, right? Or to help the client transform something, either a team dynamic or a leader dynamic or something like that. So really, there is no reason to not be in the coaching mindset. So I agree with you. I was thinking about it as you were talking about it, and I was processing it, and I decided you're right, Amy.
Wait,
Funny
let me get my life partner so you can hear that. Wait.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? That the coaching mindset is not just something for the coaching moment. There is something about the coaching mindset that we bring everywhere we go. It's not that we are doing coaching everywhere we go. That would be crazy. But the coaching mindset, the approach, the mentality behind the way we see the world, there is something powerful there that if we bring everywhere we go, then we don't have to switch on and off. It's just a way of being. Yes, Vince.
So something came up with my wife recently, and one of the things she's told me, she's like, do not coach me. Like, if you want to ask a question, tell me you're putting your coach's hat on. So she's going through something the other day, and I said, can I ask you a coaching question? And she said yes. And so I asked her the question, and she's like, oh, damn, you're right. And she went to the exact awareness that she was trying to get confirmation of. So to your point, I was just listening, and then I was like, ooh, something came to my mind, and it's like, I got to ask her this after I asked permission.
So Vince, what brought you to that space that you were just listening?
I think we were sitting out on our Four Seasons room, and we were just relaxing and just kind of updating each other on what was going on. But kind of like a coaching relationship, right? You get to know that person, and you start hearing things that maybe either add to what you already know or something that's not congruent. And that's when I was kind of like, I was curious as to where she was at in this particular process. So that's why it came up.
So you were curious about the other individual. You were really putting yourself in the other individual's mindset. What is happening over there? And then because of that level of curiosity, something came up for you. You noticed something. And that is when you asked, there was a question. And based on the agreement that you have with your wife, you asked permission to ask that question. And there you go, moving forward, right? So it's that mindset of, it's not about me, my perception, how I think things are supposed to work. and how things are what is the ROI that we're supposed to get to. It's about being curious of the other, trusting that the other is fully responsible for the process.
Yes, and when I heard you talking about that, I wasn't listening to coach her.
Mhm.
I was just listening. But that muscle kicked in.
And I think, Vince, yes, we are professionally trained coaches, so we have built that muscle to some extent. But I'm a firm believer that what you're describing there is innate in every human being. This is what we want. We want to be heard. When we open our heart to the other and we connect to the other, inevitably questions, beautiful questions are going to come up.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Can I just jump in here? Because you said the word ROI, and I know there's some of you in here concerned about, and I work with organizations too, and I know that we haven't seen the needle move much conversation, right? And I want to pull one other element into this as well, even when you're working with organizations or not. We're back to the agreement too, and setting expectations. And so to be able to talk about what are your expectations of coaching, to talk to the manager, the HR person, whoever it is, the stakeholder, what are your expectations? How will you know the needle is moving? What will be your evidence? We're back to agreement too. So a lot of the ROI is established in the agreement dialogue, right? Of how, and you need as the coach to understand how they're going to measure that from the coachee to the stakeholders.
And last time, I remember last month, I asked you, what are the 3 rules of coaching? Do we remember that? What are the 3 rules of coaching?
The client does the work.
Number 1, the client does the work. Excellent, Jennifer. What is number 2?
Client does the work.
The client does the work. And every time I do number 2, the balloons come up. And what is number 3? The 3rd rule of coaching?
The client does the work.
The client does the work. It's so amazing to me that we talk about this in coach training all the time. We repeat this in Prime Hour all the time. Every conversation that we have about coaching, we talk about that the coaching, the client does the work. And then when it comes time for us to do our practice, we are there doing the work. And then we are like, why is it not working? What is wrong? The client does the work. And we understand here, but when in practice, this is what I have noticed in my students and mentees, that when it comes time to put this in practice, we immediately start trying to take control. Let me do this, and I need this new assessment, and I need this new format, and I need to prepare for the session, and I need to have the perfect question. And like we start all of these things. The client does the work. We are there to create space. The moment that we see ourselves doing too much work, it's probably that we are not embodying that coaching mindset. It's probably time for us to look inside and say, what is bringing me to feel this need to do something here?
Just want to add, relative to the conversation about the manager saying, hey, I don't see the needle moving. That is such a red flag for me, because it means that the manager has not done their work to have the hard conversation, right? To say, here's my expectations, whatever the case may be. And they're putting it on someone else. They're delegating. So that was one thing that I took away from the conversation. And sorry, I came late today. I have back-to-back meetings, speaking of back-to-back meetings. And then the second thing about what Lakeisha said, I'm very mindful of when the coaching conversation is transactional versus transformational. And transactional is what I'm definitely in being part of this process have really, really been intentional about moving away from being the solution, from being the problem solver, from, from providing resources. That's transactional. Whereas transformational is really listening to the point where the client walks away with their solution. And I just want to echo that.
Thank you for that. When I start working with clients, if it's for an organization where there is a sponsor individually, one thing that I am always paying attention to is, and I want to clarify in some fashion, is that the client is very aware that they are the ones in charge. If the needle needs to be moved, they are the ones moving. It's not me. I'm here to provide the space. Where do you want to move the needle to? What are we going to work on today so that you move the needle? Are you committed to moving the needle? Where is the needle going to? It's the client that sets all of these standards. And then I provide the space for them to move the needle.
You're all shaking your head. Do you believe this? So how are you going to remind yourselves next time you start to get that performance angst?
I think what Hind said, and I really appreciate actually this whole conversation. One image that I use that helps me when I become aware that I'm self-evaluating is I picture a spotlight on myself. And it's like, oh no, it's pointed in the wrong direction. And so I will like visualize it going over to the other person. And it's just a little trick I have. And it helps with anxiety of all kinds. Like it can be, it's like, what is going on here? What needs to happen? Anyway, that's one trick I use that helps.
That, Jennifer, because that is, when I said, it's not about you, Hind said it actually, it's not about us. That when you do that visual in your head, that automatically puts it on the other person. That's great. I love that.
I will say this, that moving the needle feels different depending on the client. I have some clients that moving the needle means, Kristen, just tell me what I need to do, right? And I'm shifting for sure. Some moving the needle is, wow, I never thought about that before. I feel like moving the needle is on a continuum depending on the client. And at the same time, it does require kind of a consistent approach as a coach to develop, so that you're moving the needle kind of, you're honoring the client and where they're at, and also thinking about, and I think that's what makes coaching so challenging sometimes, because you're like, whoa, moving the needle in this situation looks a lot different than moving this situation, moving the needle in that situation, right? So I just have to really think about, wow, this is a different approach to moving the needle. There's like different approaches, I guess, my point. I'll just stop there.
And that's the beauty of the work that we do, right? The client is the one who sets where the needle, what is the needle, where they want to put the needle on, right? They are the ones how much the needle is moving. The client is the one who sets all of that. We provide the proper space for them to be able to do that work intentionally. And that's the distinction between an insightful conversation and coaching. We can all have insightful conversations. Coaching is an intentional process towards that needle that the client created, right? So, okay, you want to get the needle in that particular place, in that particular, okay, so let's move towards that. I am not the one moving the needle. I am the one who provides the client the space for them to look around and say, oh, this is the next thing I need to do to get the needle where I want to get it.
And one of the things, Elias, I want to say in addition to that is that question that you ask about what's the needle and where you want to go. that happened even before the coaching conversation, but it's a really important one so that you have the understanding of what their mindset is. At least that's what I heard you say.
100%. Yes. It's all about creating that space for the client to take full ownership. But then I have a question, and it goes back to the New Yorker cartoon. Why? Why is it that the coaching mindset is so different that we put ourselves in that space that I am not there to provide the value? I'm not there to provide, the solution. Why is that so important and valuable here?
This might just be because of where I am, but what drives me to think that way rather than the way I've been trained to think is my insecurity about the value of what I'm offering. And that, this is a great thing, coaching, but if I'm not getting paid, there's going to be a finite amount of coaching that I can do. I don't have, if I had like a rich uncle who could just pay me to do benevolent coaching, that would be a different story. But because I'm always thinking about how to convey to the person who can pay, what is the value?
I was thinking to your question, Elias, if we're the mom lifting the weights, the son doesn't get the benefit of lifting the weights himself. So he doesn't get all of the knowledge that comes with that. How much can my body lift, right? What's too much? What's not enough? How will I look when I'm transformed? How will I feel when I'm transformed? We can't give that, no matter how smart we are or wise we are or talented we are, we can't give the experience of the journey to the person. The person has to have the journey themselves. And it's, you and I've talked about this many times. It's beautiful for them to have, right? It's such a gift because some people have never had it. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I would encourage you all, I'm going to put this there in the video, what you just said, Lakeisha, because I would encourage you all in that moment, when you are concerned about the question that you're asking, when you're concerned about the value, when you're concerned about the needle, when you're concerned about how much preparation I'm doing, all of these things, think exactly about that. I will send you all the cartoon as well, so you can put it in your next to your computer so that you remember that as well. The moment that we do the work, that's the beauty of coaching. The moment that we start and we step in and do the work for the client, we are not supporting them in building their muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So let them do their part so they can build their muscle.
One of the things I like about the visual I have in my head I haven't seen this cartoon, but you highlighted that there's work involved, right? And I remember Amy used to say, listen, the difference between, right, a nice conversation and a coaching conversation is the work and the momentum. And I think for me, it's about, they have to want to do the work, they have to be willing to do the work. It might be painful, it might be hard, but it's worth it because of the results that they're going to get. And so I can't wait to see your video, because that is a big reminder of why are we even here and what's the outcome that is desired by that person and enabling them to lift the weight.
100%. Thank you, everyone. This is beautiful. I'm noticing here that we have 9 minutes, and I have some announcements to make, but I would love for us to very succinctly go around the room and get our takeaways. What are you leaving this conversation with here today?
I'll go. The phrase that I wrote down and underlined multiple times is just a reminder for me that the engagements are transformational, not transactional.
I wrote down the client does the work, ! With a happy face. So I'm leaving with encouragement to actually do it.
Thank you, Lakeisha.
What I wrote down is that since I want my focus to be on the person and not on the problem, being curious about what they're saying or where they are is the way to be there.
Thank you, John.
I think it's just continuing to hear that. I mean, I grew up thinking I had to provide value in a relationship like that. And now I'm just realizing that I can provide even more value to them because it's something they need to learn, right?
Yes.
I'm leaving this conversation feeling settled and calm, which is great. And the quote I really love, Lakeisha, when you said the client is wise, that's beautiful. It's good. Yeah.
I'm going to go back to my coursework and think about my personal foundation, because I know I've already said here, and it's probably reading all over me, I don't know how I'm going to make money, and I don't know how to make sure people know that there's value. So it sounds to me, I feel like for me, what I'm taking away from this is that I need to return a little bit to my personal foundation and kind of get that sorted out.
Mm. Ongoing work, right, that we do. Thank you, Kathy. And Kristen and Hind?
Just continuing to recognize the client is the owner. Ultimately, they are the owner of their way forward, their journey, whatever the case may be. They are the owner.
Mm-hmm. It's their work, not ours, right? Thank you. Hind?
Yeah, I just want to resist my urge to carry the weight. I like to carry the weight.
Oh, this is beautiful. Amy?
I'm just inspired by this conversation. Inspired. How's that?
Yeah, I am encouraged. Thank you so much for all the insights and I like to say the cross-pollination. I so appreciate you being here and sharing these thoughts and your experience and how much we can learn from each other. We'll be back here next month, and I will tell you exactly the date so that you can mark in your calendars. We are going to be back here on Wednesday, June 19th, same time. It's Juneteenth, actually. So June 19th, we are going to be here. Put on your calendar so that you can join us as well. One thing, a couple of announcements that I want to make for you here. One thing is that, Amy and I started the Prime Coaching Academy. This Prime Hour, I started in my own practice. So you're going to notice in your emails and notifications that we are transitioning the Prime Hour into the Prime Coaching Academy. So the email may look different, and all of that, the branding and all of this, because we are transitioning that into the Prime, making Prime Hour part of the Prime Coaching Academy. It's still the same Prime Hour. It's still free. We're still here just to have this conversation. Just the emails are going to be different and coming from a different place, so that you know that is happening. If you've seen on LinkedIn, Amy and I did last week was International Coaching Week, and we did a giveaway during the International Coaching Week. The giveaway ended yesterday, but for you that came here to Prime Hour, it's still open for you today. So if you are looking to have a level 2 program, there is a possibility for you to do the level 2 program for free. We want to give one ride at our level 2 program that starts in the fall, and I am putting the link where you can go and enter that giveaway. The link is in the chat so that you can get that free program. There are a couple of other drawings that we're doing as well. We started also a podcast called Prime Space. Here comes another Prime Space. So please go to either Apple Music or go to Spotify and listen. We already have 3 episodes. we're probably going to have like an episode a week or something. It's just 10, 12 minutes of conversation. And I would love for you to subscribe and put a 5-star rating there for us, write a review. That would be fantastic for you to do this. We also have now a YouTube channel. I put the link already in the chat. I'll put it again. And that's where you're going to find the videos of these prime hours. So there is already the video from last month, and you're going to see shortly, you're going to see the video for our conversation here today as well.